And then we're giving you the colossal head scratcher. This can't be real. There's no way this isn't scripted. Jake Paul is paying Anthony Joshua, even though Anthony Joshua is worth 200 million plus dollars to take a fall or not to hit him hard. Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua.
Welcome back to the Against Cage podcast. My name is Eric Richter. I am here with Most Valuable Promotion CEO Nakisa Bidarian ahead of a massive fight card. Casey Center, September 19th, Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua. We have a ton to talk about. But first, welcome and I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. Excited to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into obviously the one of the biggest boxing fights of the year, you guys have had
Of
a
all
bunch of
time,
signings.
not of the year, of all time.
No, 100%. And probably one of the more interesting ones too. And we'll get to that in a minute. You guys obviously big in the women's MMA world as well. Caroline Dubois just started, just signed, fighting on the preliminary bout. And I kind of want to get your thoughts on women's boxing as a whole, but maybe just give you some background about Caroline and how that signing came together.
Look, she's one of the most highly sought after boxers, male or female, in the world when she looked to be transitioning from her former promoter. We've had an eye on her for multiple years, but she was in a promotional relationship. And as soon as she
Mhm.
became a free agent, I flew to London to start to meet with her, flew there a couple of more times and kind of showed her the path that MVP is on in terms of supporting women's boxing, providing the platform, providing the push, and being able to give her the biggest opportunities to not just consolidate belts in her division, but also to create super fights. Women's boxing is in our DNA. You know, I had the benefit of being at the UFC when we started women's MMA with Ronda Rousey's first fight, and I saw the power of allowing these athletes to be presented the same way as the men. Ronda became the number one athlete in the sport in 2015.
Yep.
Only Serena Williams can say the same, right? And then when we started MVP, Jake and I agreed women's boxing had that opportunity, but we wanted to start slow. And we identified Amanda Serrano, who was 12 years into her career, seven division champion, but nobody knew who she was. Her pay was paltry at best. And we had a strategy on how to bring awareness and popularity to her, and it worked. And within, I think, 9 months, she made her first million. And just this past July, she headlined an event that did bigger viewership than the Stanley Cup. And when you look to this event, the co-main is Alicia Baumgartner, and she's fighting men's rules, pushing for choice and equality, trying to again break barriers. And if you look at the prelims, we have Acoste Valle, who's a top pound for pound fighter, top 10.
Mhm.
Sugar Johnson, who is the first undisputed champion from Australia. And to your point, Caroline Dubois.
Yeah, and you guys have been, at the forefront, right? I mean, the Serrano Katie Taylor fights were obviously massive. They're headlining their own cards. You guys have chosen to like. There's a lot of women's fights on the card. Obviously, you have Anderson Silva versus Tyron Woodley on the main card of this as well. Another boxing match, but there's a lot of women up and down this card. Prelims, main card. Obviously, Bumgarner is defending her title in the co-main event. Maybe talk to me about like just like the promotional side of it, where you have the obviously the headliner that everyone's going to want to tune in to see Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua, but then you're kind of filtering in the women's boxing as well, maybe a little bit ahead of that fight, kind of building it up a little bit.
Yeah, look, we've followed that formula since MVP started by giving the eyeballs of Jake Paul's events to women's boxing and then translating that to these women standing on their own and doing their own massive events. And so when we signed Alicia, the Amanda Serrano blueprint was definitely part of the thought process of how do we take another young, fantastic athlete and give them the platform and the push to then drive their own pay effectively, right?
Yep. Yep.
This main card, what we tried to do is provide you with four different unique products. First fight is Jamal Harvey, who is the best Olympian to come out of Paris. He's a young prospect, but he's going to get a massive look in front of the world,
Yep.
build his name. So that's the first fight. Then we're giving you two MMA GOATs who have both boxed against Jake Paul, never fought each other in MMA, and that will draw in a large audience of MMA fans and also looking at Brazil with Anderson Silva's penetration there. And then just like Taylor Serrano was the co-main of Paul Tyson, I think, you know, Baumgardner Boudin has the potential to be the fight of the night. And then we're giving you the colossal head scratcher. This can't be real. There's no way this isn't scripted. Jake Paul is paying Anthony Joshua, even though Anthony Joshua is worth 200 million plus dollars to take a fall or not to hit him hard. Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua.
And let's get into that. What from a promoter's perspective. Some people might not know this about you, but you obviously you mentioned it earlier, worked with the UFC in the past, Morgan Stanley. Like you're a businessman, right? And you're also a promoter, but you're also a businessman. So give me the whole all sides of this. What are you guys thinking? Putting Jake Paul against Anthony Joshua, who's as credentialed of a boxer as anybody in the world.
Thinking the impossible is possible. Thinking once again, bringing the entire world to focus on boxing for one night. Thinking that if anyone can do it, Jake Paul can. And thinking that this is, the right time for Jake to do this in actuality, given he started thinking about this in March that he wanted to fight Joshua. I was always pushing him to do it later.
Hmm.
Really, AJ's been on the sidelines for 14 plus months, right? So if Jake's going to do it, this is probably a good time to do it.
Interesting. And obviously, you've seen the betting odds, right? We understand where
The
Anthony
better
Joshua
odds
is.
than Canelo versus Skull was in May.
Fair, totally fair. Um, Honestly, these odds they're not much worse than what Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou was. To be fair, so
That was
you know,
after Francis hung with Tyson Fury.
yes, with Tyson Fury,
Took
correct,
no
famously.
seriousness in that fight and was probably enjoying life to the fullest right by the time he got into the ring. But
Yeah, no, 100%. My question is like, do we expect Jake Paul to hang with Anthony Joshua here and avoid the knockout?
I mean, I think there's the potential that Jake Paul knocks out Anthony Joshua. I don't think it's about expecting him to hang. Now, do I think there's a chance that Anthony Joshua knocks out Jake Paul? I'd be lying if I said no. Of course there is. I mean, there's a chance Jake Paul gets knocked out in any fight, right? But uh, yeah, if Anthony Joshua gets Jake in a corner and lands cleanly 5, 6, 7 shots in a row, or maybe even one super powerful shot, of course Jake can go down. 28 men have gone down.
Yep.
24 men have gone down against Anthony Joshua, right, by way of KO.
Mhm.
So that's something that you have to go in anticipating that it could happen. But do I think that Jake can go 8 rounds with Joshua? Of course. Do I think that Jake can KO Joshua? Absolutely. But do I think that it's his most challenging fight to date by a long shot? Yeah, I think other than, when he got in the ring with, this is gonna sound crazy, but with Nate Robinson, we were all just like, what is this
Yeah.
kid? Right? Like, yeah, it was fun. You're a YouTuber, you fought another YouTuber. Now you're going in there with like a seasoned athlete who's chiseled like a Greek god and has performed at levels you never could have. And he detonated him,
Yeah.
right? Even though he was the underdog. Ben Askren, I felt good about, but Dana White, right? He was going to make $1 million bet that Ben Askren was going to beat Jake Paul. And then you look at the Tyron Woodley was probably, the other really scary one because now he's suddenly fighting a UFC champion, an elite knockout artist. And he almost, that was the only time he's ever been on the ropes where he got kind of like hit back on the ropes was with that first Tyron fight.
For sure. Win or lose. I mean, Jake can kind of do whatever he wants because he's just built himself up to the point where he's such a lightning rod for attention that he can kind of do whatever. But win or lose, what do you think is regardless of what happens next Friday? Where you guys look at? What do you guys think about what could possibly be next for him?
I think win or lose, he's going to continue to be a prominent figure within boxing inside and outside of the ring. I expect Jake Paul to deal with this like he has with everything in his life, with leadership, with courage, with clarity. And yeah, his brand has never been bigger. His impact's never been larger. And as he's become a young man, I mean, he's still a young man, right? He was like a very young man when I met him. He's 28, turns 29 in January. The impact he's had on this sport in 5 years is not comparable to any other athlete in history. The impact he's had on women within a sport in 4 years, 4.5 years since we started MVP, is not comparable to any athlete ever in any sport, ever, 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 ever. And he doesn't get enough recognition for that.
For sure. I get one last question, and you guys are part of a bigger, larger sample size of boxing, where you guys have obviously the women's MMA, pretty advancing in that. I had seen previously that you were kind of indifferent towards Ali Act changes. I just want to get an idea if it doesn't affect your business model. Just my question is, what do you view the Ali Act as beneficial? Ali Act changes as beneficial to the fighters or not as beneficial? Like, how do you view that? Obviously, you're a businessman, you understand the business.
So, you- women's boxing, we're trying to create a unifying brand that represents the best athletes in the world, a product that's consistently at the highest level. In the male side of the business, that's very hard to accomplish given the ownership of different fighters across all these different promoters. The Ali Act, I would say, has been there, but I'm not sure it's enforced often. When I look at the details of what they're calling the Revival Act, some components are good, but really, if you read into it clearly, you see that those guys at TKO have pretty smartly made it almost very hard for anyone else to do it quickly, right? Given the different stipulations in there,
Yep.
it's it's almost a way of creating another monopoly for themselves, is how they're
Hmm.
looking. And when I say I'm indifferent to it, my point is the following, and I think one of the senators asked this question, what percentage of revenue are you willing to commit as a part of this Revival Act to the boxers? And Lawrence Epstein, who I think very highly of, said, we can't answer that right now, obviously. But obviously you can because almost every startup in a sport or any other business burns more than it makes, right? It's just unheard of if you start a business and right away you're profitable. And particularly in sports, you're spending a lot of money on your athletes, which is the product out the gate. So for me, if they were to say, hey, we're going to commit 50% of revenue to the athletes, if not more, because out the gate, you're probably committing more if you're signing real fighters, right? Then it makes the Ali Act change beautiful.
Hmm.
But the point that I make is I'm indifferent because I know how we treat fighters. I know that we're a fighter first organization and that us as a promotion doesn't need to make 30, 40, 50% margins, which last time I checked, TKO has 50% plus EBITDA margins, which is
Yeah.
insanity when you think about other sports. I'm not saying it's not great for the shareholders, kudos to them, but I'll tell you who it's not good for, the fighters who are going in there and taking damage. And so I'm indifferent to it because whether we're a part of the Ali Act or not, we're going to treat fighters the right way. And we're going to build a brand that is synonymous to the NBA, to the NFL, where those teams aren't overly profitable, but extremely valuable.
I guess one word answer since we're running out of time. Good or bad? The Ali Act Revival Act.
Good for TKO, bad for fighters.
Absolutely. Nakisa, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much. Fight December 19th. We're all really excited and best of luck. Talk to you soon.
Let's talk to you.